Okay, now I'm going to take a look at the PlayStation 2 version. This was released in 2005 and is more of a sequel or remake than a port. It's actually called Twinkle Star Sprites La Petite Princesse, and I'm going to let you enjoy this intro here. Okay, now the only thing I have to say about that intro is I enjoyed the Sega Saturn version a lot more because it was fully animated instead of having static images just coming across the screen. Now when you look at the options here, everything's pretty standard. The only thing you'll notice is the vibration functionality that the previous versions did not have. The reason the Dreamcast version wouldn't have had that is most Neo Geo games ported to Dreamcast, as I'd mentioned, were straight ports, and they really didn't take much care into porting them. Let's take a look at this and let's get right into it. You have your standard modes just like in the arcade version, your story mode, your character mode, and your versus modes. There's this whole long story sequence which is all voiced in Japanese, so I'm just going to skip right by that. Now what you'll notice here is, just like the previous game, each of the stages has a story sequence, which basically our main character is talking to her opponent at first, and they're conversing about whatever, I don't know, it's Japanese. Of course, this is fully voiced like the Sega Saturn version, which is nice. And instead of having a wise-ass rabbit, you have a wise-ass dog in this game. And he has an awful lot to say for a little dog. Your opponents will usually have something like this owl you see here, which kind of short-circuited. I don't know why, really. These dialogue sequences can last an awful long time, so I'm just going to skip a lot of this dialogue, because I don't understand a single bit of it, so it really doesn't help any of us to hear it. And then she magically gets some sort of weird carrot nose, and then her book flies away. Now I skipped all the load time because, simply enough, we don't need to go through the load time. What you'll notice right away is this game has outstanding graphics compared to the arcade version. Everything is just as it was in the original arcade version. You'll see all these enemies in their chains, and they die in chains, and the fireballs fly over. You can still do your normal reverse attacks, your boss attacks, and everything you would do in your arcade version. And she died rather quickly. I like how when your enemy dies, they just fly right off the screen in the 3D mode. And of course the cool thing is everything is rendered in 3D. The backgrounds are rendered in 3D, your character is rendered in 3D. And of course all the enemies are rendered in 3D as well. Now here's the next level. Same thing, more dialogue. So we're just gonna skip right through this. You can usually tell what your enemies and what your character are really like talking about based on their emotions. Like you'll notice they get mad or something weird like that happens and you turn into some sort of... Okay, getting right into this. I just love these stages in this game. They're just so well detailed. You just wouldn't expect this from a shooter game. And of course all the voices are back as well. Your character will make voices when they do stuff. And you just notice I did a reverse attack. which actually turned into my dog for some reason. I don't know why that happened. And of course it charges up your combos, and your meter on the bottom still works the same for your boss attack like it did in the arcade game. And of course, instead of showing the arcade stick when you get hit, it shows the analog stick, because that's what you have to wiggle back and forth. The cool thing about this game is that when you can actually use the analog stick or the control pad, which is a very nice feature that not a lot of games use much anymore. And you know, so I'm throwing all kinds of shit at him right now, which he dodged enough of it, surprisingly. And that fever thing seems to be like what replaced. Remember in the previous game how it sounded like they were saying Pikachu or Pika? That looks like it was what it was replacing. And you notice the meter is flashing right now, which means that for this time the meter will stay full and you can do as many boss attacks as you'd like to. I still love how surprised the enemy sounds when they get defeated. They're like, "Oh no, you beat me." And of course we won, so our character's gonna all brag about it. As I had mentioned earlier, I cut out a bunch of the load times because even though they're pretty short, it just saves us on a few seconds here. Oh no, the two big nurse ladies, they're gonna get us now. They hit your dog. I mean, anyone who hits a dog is really mean. Especially if he's a weird floating stuffed dog. And then they recruit you as a nurse, I guess. For a second. Don't you love it when weird anime nurse characters have giant syringes? Okay, getting right into this level. A lot of these enemies, of course, look very reminiscent to the arcade version. In a later level, those space clams from the second level in the arcade version make a new appearance again. Of course, all the sound in this game, as opposed to the previous versions, is just like over the top. Everything sounds great because, you know, you're running on the power of the PlayStation 2 and you don't have to worry about running an arcade game anymore. Gotta love the voice samples, they just sound great in this game. Everything really just sounds great in this game, especially the music. It's really great sounding because they were able to sample a lot higher than any of the previous versions. Gotta watch out for all those enemies there. This is one thing that I often hate is the enemies in this game tend to use their boss attacks and stuff just a lot more than they would in the arcade version. Take care of all these enemies here. And that's what your bomb looks like. Basically, your character appears on the screen and does something, instead of just like a big star coming on the screen like the previous version of this game. And they should be dying soon here, I hope. Let's take care of all these now. The only thing I gotta say that I liked better in the arcade version was the fireballs had little faces on them. I thought that was kind of cool, but they took that out for this version. Well, basically, the PlayStation 2 version, it's a great game. Definitely a great spiritual successor to the original. And it has awesome graphics. So I definitely recommend you picking this one up and giving it a good look. Later.